Hello everybody and welcome back to another EDH gameplay video brought to you by Affinity for Commander. My name is Martin and today we have a battle between four lesser seen commanders, a murderous fishman, a glow-in-the-dark beast, an insane vampire and a couple of lesbian werewolf hunters. But before we begin, I'd like to personally thank all of the absolutely amazing patrons listed on screen for their heartwarming generosity. We wouldn't be able to continue making videos such as these without your support, so thank you. Also, if you decide to make a purchase from any of these websites, then be sure to do so via our affiliate links in the video description. It won't cost you anything extra, but it really helps out the channel. And finally, if you haven't already, then go and check out altersleeves.com, where you can find thousands of super cool designs on perfect fit sleeves to really bling out your decks. Just be sure to quote us as the ones who sent you. But that is enough of that, let's take a look at those opening hands. I am playing my Anje Falconwrath deck, which contains pretty much every madness card that has ever been printed in black and red. Yes, this deck is all about discarding, and even runs multiple creatures that harm my opponents when I do so. My opening hand contains Grave Scrabbler from Under the Floorboards, Drownyard Temple, Evolving Wilds, Myriad Landscape, a Swamp, and a Mountain.
Phil is playing his Sygg with a Cutthroat deck, which aims to draw at least 4 extra cards per turn cycle using his commander's ability. He plans on doing this by using a selection of life loss and damaging effects, and runs a boatload of mana rocks to ensure that he has enough mana to cast his game-ending spells. Phil keeps a starting hand of Mox Opal, Demir's Signet, Thought Vessel, Trickbind, Skyclave Relic, Forsaken Monument, and Tainted Isle.
Paddy is playing his Tayam Luminous Enigma deck, where all of his permanents have a mana value of 3 or less. He hopes to use this to always have targets for his commander's second ability, and runs a healthy amount of creatures that enter the battlefield of counters to pay for the cost. Paddy's starting hand consists of Selesnia's Signet, Abzan Falconer, Ramanap Excavator, Torrens Fist of the Angels, Kodama's Reach, Dam, and Undergrowth Stadium.
And finally, Calvin's playing his Halana and Alena Partners deck, which focuses on making his commander's power as big as possible so that he can get the most value off of their counter-placing ability. He also runs a legendary creatures sub-theme, as well as a tidy counters matter sub-theme to boot. Calvin's opening hand is made up of Bard class, Bow of Nylea, Decimate, Command Tower, Oran Reef the Vastwood, Tyrite Sanctum, and a snow-covered mountain.
I win the die roll and start things off by playing Evolving Wilds. I immediately sacrifice the land, putting a swamp into play tapped, and pass to Phil.
Phil plays Tainted Isle and passes.
Paddy plays Undergrowth Stadium and ends his turn.
Calvin plays Oran Reef the Vastwood and passes to Martin.
I play Terramorphic Expanse, sacrifice it, put a mountain into play tapped, and pass the turn.
Phil draws, discards down to 7, and ends his turn.
Looks like that one land hand may have been a mistake after all. Paddy plays Vault of Champions and passes to Calvin.
Calvin plays Command Tower and then taps out to cast Bard class. Unable to do anything else, he passes the turn.
I begin my turn by cycling Baron Moor and then play Myriad Landscape. With nothing more to do, I end my turn.
Phil plays Mox Opal, misses his land drop, and passes to Paddy.
Paddy starts his turn by playing Temple of Silence, scrying the top card of his library to the bottom. Next he casts Selesnia's Signet and passes the turn.
Calvin plays a Snow-Covered Mountain and then pays 2 mana to level up his Bard class. With 1 land untapped, he ends his turn.
I play a Swamp and cast my commander, Anje Falconwrath. With nothing more to do, I pass to Phil.
Phil once again misses his land drop, casts Elixir of Immortality, and passes.
Paddy begins his turn by casting Kodama's Reach, rubbing salt into Phil's landless wounds.
That's gotta sting.
He searches his library for a plains and a forest, putting the former into play tapped and playing the latter as his land for turn. Not yet finished, Paddy casts Arcus Acolyte and ends his turn.
Calvin plays a Snow-Crowed Forest and taps a single mana to cast Domri, Anarch of Bolas. He uses the Planeswalker's +1 ability to add a green to his mana pool, which he then uses alongside one other mana to cast his commander, Halana and Alena, partners.
That Bard's class is doing some real work.
The lovers enter with a +1/+1 counter on them thanks to Bard's class, and Calvin taps his remaining mana to cast Bow of Nylea before passing to Martin. Martin responds to this by activating Anje's ability, discarding Anger and drawing a card. With no further interruptions, Martin proceeds to his turn.
In my turn, I play a swamp and passed without casting anything.
How suspicious. Phil starts his turn by casting Mana Crypt, closely followed by Demir's Signet. Next, he casts Thought Vessel, and then taps the Signet and the Vessel to cast his commander, Sygg River Cutthroat. Pleased with his plays, Phil ends his turn.
Paddy begins his turn by casting his commander, Tayam Luminous Enigma. Next he casts Dawntrader Elk, which enters with a Vigilance counter thanks to Tayam's ability. Out of mana, Paddy passes to Calvin.
Calvin activates Dormi's +1 ability, adding a green to his mana pool, and casts Evolution Sage. Next he casts Blizzard Brawl, having his commander fight Tayam. The Nightmare Beast is destroyed and Calvin moves to combat, where he puts 4 +1/+1 counters on Evolution Sage with Halana and Alena's ability. He attacks Martin with the 8/6 Hasty Elf, and Martin declares no blocks, taking 8 damage. Not quite finished, Calvin moves to his second main phase, where he plays Tyrite Sanctum. This triggers his Sage's ability, proliferating the loyalty counters on Domri and the +1/+1 counters on both of his creatures.
At least he can't proliferate the level counters on Bard's class.
A small mercy to be sure. Still not finished, Calvin taps his remaining land to cast Liquid Metal Tor, and finally passes the turn. Martin responds to this by activating Anje's ability, discarding from under the floorboards. He casts a spell for its madness cost, where X is 3, creating 3 2/2 zombie tokens and gaining 3 life. Phil then draws a card thanks to his commander, and with no further interruptions, Martin proceeds to his turn.
I start my turn by activating Anje, discarding and casting Terminal Agony in the process. I use the spell to destroy Calvin's commander, untap Anje, and then play Bloodfall Caves, gaining a life. Moving to combat, I attack Domri with all 3 of my zombies, dealing him just enough damage to lower his loyalty to 0. The Planeswalker is sent to the graveyard, and I end my turn.
Phil plays Vault of Whispers, doubling the number of lands in his possession, and then casts Skyclave Relic, paying the artifact's kicker cost. He makes 2 tapped copies of the Mana Rock, and passes to Paddy.
In his turn, Paddy recasts his commander, and passes.
Calvin also recasts his commander and used the combined effects of Bard's class and Oran Ruth of Vosswood to have them enter with 2 +1/+1 counters. He then moves to combat, adding 4 +1/+1 counters to his Evolution Sage, and attacks Phil with the Swole Elf. Phil declares no blocks, taking 12 damage, and Calvin ends his turn. Martin once again responds this by tapping his commander, this time discarding Drownyard Temple to her ability. Not yet finished, he sacrifices Mirror Landscape to put 2 mountains onto the battlefield tapped, and then moves to his turn.
I play a swamp and then cast Psychosis Crawler. Moving to combat, I attack Phil with all 3 of my zombies, and he declares no blocks, taking 6 damage. With nothing more to do, I pass to Phil.
Phil begins his turn by taking 3 damage from his Mana Crypt, and casts Forsaken Monument. Next, he plays Field of the Dead, which isn't super useful in his current position, and passes the turn.
Paddy starts his turn by sacrificing Dawntrader Elk to its own ability, searching his library for a basic forest and putting it into play tapped. Unable to do anything else at this time, he ends his turn.
Calvin plays a Snow-Cone Mountain, proliferating the +1/+1 counters on both of his creatures with his Sage's triggered ability. Next, he casts Decimate, targeting Martin's Psychosis Crawler, Phil's Forsaken Monument and Field of the Dead, and his own Bow of Nylea.
A worthwhile sacrifice if I do say so myself.
Phil responds this by casting Cryptic Command, countering the spell and returning Evolution Sage to Calvin's hand. Not to be deterred, Calvin recasts his Elf Druid and then moves to combat. Here he targets Evolution Sage with Halana and Alena, and Martin responds this by activating Anje's ability. He discards Alchemist's Greeting, casting the spell for its madness cost, and deals the Sage 4 damage in this way. This destroys the Elf, Anje untaps, and everybody other than Martin loses 1 life from Psychosis Crawler. Absolutely livid, Calvin decides not to attack and passes to Martin.
I draw, each of my opponents lose a life, and I play a mountain. Next I tap my commander, discarding Grave Scrabbler and drawing a new card. This causes Phil, Paddy and Calvin to each lose another life, untaps Anje, and I cast the Scrabbler for its madness cost. With the zombie on the stack, I tap Anje again, this time discarding Squee, Goblin Nabob. My opponents each lose a life, and Grave Scrabbler finally resolves. I use the zombie's ETB to return Squee to my hand, given that he is the only creature in my graveyard, and then cast Tormenting Voice. I once again discard Squee, drawing 2 new cards, and everybody other than me loses 2 life. But wait, there's more. Next I cast Cathartic Reunion, discarding 2 cards to draw 3. This results in everybody else losing 3 life, and I move to combat. Here I once again attack Phil with my trio of zombies, and he blocks one of them with Sygg, taking 4 damage. Pleased with how things are going, I pass the turn, and Phil draws a card from his commander's ability before proceeding to his untap step.
Phil takes no damage from his Mana Crypt, much to his relief, and plays Spire of Industry. Next he taps all of his lands and Mana Rocks to cast Torment of Hailfire, where X is 15.
Sweet Urza!
Paddy discards 6 cards, sacrifices all 3 of his non-land permanents, and loses 18 life. Calvin realises even if he discards his entire hand and sacrifices all of his non-land permanents, he'll go down to 1 life and die to Psychosis Crawler in Martin's upkeep. He therefore decides to simply lose 45 life, knocking him out of the game now instead.
Denying me a kill? How rude!
Finally, Martin discards 5 cards, sacrifices a zombie, and loses 27 life. Unable to do anything else, Phil draws a card from his commander's ability, and then ends his turn.
Paddy begins his turn by casting Damn, overloading the spell to wipe the board of all creatures.
Damn, Paddy.
He then casts Lotus Cobra, providing him with a much needed blocker, and passes.
In Martin's upkeep, he returns Squee from his graveyard to his hand, and then plays a Swamp. He then recasts his commander, closely followed by Glinthorn Buccaneer. Next, Martin activates Anje's ability, discarding Fiery Temper and drawing a new card this way. He untaps Anje, the Buccaneer deals 1 damage to Phil and Paddy, and Martin casts the discarded spell for its madness cost, dealing 3 damage to Phil. Moving to combat, Martin attacks Phil with his Hasty Minotaur, dealing him lethal damage and knocking him out of the game. With only 1 opponent left, Martin ends his turn.
Paddy plays Tainted Wood, adding a white mana to his mana pool with his Flowery Snake. He then uses this mana along with all of his lands to recast Tayam and passes to me. I respond to this by tapping Anje, discarding Squee to draw a card. Glinthorn Buccaneer deals Paddy 1 damage, and I move to my turn.
Martin returns Squee to his hand in his upkeep and activates Anje's ability. He discards Necrogoyf, untaps his Vampire, and deals Paddy 1 damage with his Buccaneer's ability. Martin then casts the discarded Goyf, who ends with 9 power, and activates his commander's ability once again. This time he discards the Strength of Lunacy, untapping Anje and casting the aura for its madness cost. Martin equips the aura to his Minotaur, which deals Paddy a damage from the discard and taps Anje for a 3rd time. He discards Dark Withering, dealing Paddy yet another damage, untaps Anje, and casts the kill spell targeting Lotus Cobra. The snake is destroyed, and Martin moves to combat, where he attacks Paddy with his 12-powered Necrogoyf.
Which has haste thanks to the anger in my graveyard.
Unable to block, given that the creature has protection from white, Paddy takes lethal damage, leaving Martin as the victor.
Well, that is it for another game. I hope that you enjoyed watching me sweep in and claim victory with the second best Legoif ever printed. Don't forget that you can help to support our channel in 4 quick and easy ways. Hitting that like button, subscribing, hitting the bell icon, and leaving us a comment. I read every one. And if you really like us, then consider checking out our Patreon page, where you can find exclusive rewards such as custom tokens and playmats for as little as $1 a month. That's all for now though, we'll see you next time. Stay awesome!